Hello, good evening. I would like to call our meeting to order. We have quorum here. Can we please start with the roll call at 4:40 p.m.?
Sure. Commissioner Keast.
Here.
Commissioner Scarborough.
Here.
Commissioner Sienko.
Here.
Commissioner Jantz.
Here.
Commissioner Webster.
Here.
Commissioner Cohen.
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Here.
Commissioner O'Rourke.
Here.
Staff present, Curtis Humphreys. Carlos Castillo.
Here.
Sherry Collins.
Here.
Myself, Kyla Dalton Nava, and Jeremy McCone.
Thank you so much for taking care of roll call. I appreciate that. I would like to move on to agenda item number 2. We're just going to get right into business. This is a special board meeting, and I appreciate your willingness to participate in today's board meeting. So it was a last-minute board meeting, and you may have had some questions as to why we were calling this board meeting 1 month before our regularly scheduled board meeting in November. A unique situation came up, and I wanted to make sure that I was able to present this information to you as the chair of the board. I didn't feel comfortable making this decision on my own, so I wanted to share this information with the full board. So that's why I'm bringing this discussion back to the full board in order to make a decision on how to move forward. The issue is that at the last board meeting, we agreed on a bonus for Executive Director Sherry Collins for her performance, and also based on the previous pay increases that were submitted but weren't granted. Carlos drafted a letter, and the letter was signed and sent in. ADOA reached out to me directly and mentioned that there was an update. They said that they had presented us with the options of continuing with the bonus as approved and submitted, or instead request a base pay increase with no bonus. We could also request a base increase with a small bonus. And the fourth option was to request a pay change with the same bonus that was already approved. I felt like with the history of the ACDHH salary increase requests being denied, we were pretty surprised at the response that we received from ADOA. I didn't feel comfortable making that decision, and I wanted to bring it to the full board for the board's discussion on how to move forward. I spoke with Carlos and Curtis to get the history because they had that information. And I asked them to gather the information on the timeline with the board history and the pay increase requests and the history of the denials. All of that information was uploaded in your board materials. If you have not had the opportunity to review those materials, please take a moment to review them. I've asked Carlos and Curtis to present to the board the details and the specifics of the history, and they will be able to answer all potential questions that we have. Please keep in mind that for Sherry's confidentiality, we're not going to be talking about a dollar amount. Instead, we will be talking about percentages only, please. So again, we have those 4 options. I can go over those options again later. But before we take questions from the board, I would like to have Carlos and Curtis present the information to the board. Commissioner Cohen, do you mind waiting until after the presentation? This is Commissioner Cohen. I just missed that acronym. You said ADA? This is PV? No, ADOA, the Department of Administration, ADOA. They are the HR for the state, essentially. This is Commissioner Cohen, great. We also always eat the alphabet soup in government, so I appreciate that reminder. Commissioner Cohen, it's delicious. This is PV. Carlos, I'm going to turn the time over to you.
Thanks, Commissioner Jantz. The information that I sent out earlier this week, or that I had Kyla upload for you folks, basically detailed the submissions that we had made to the Department of Administration to request Sherry's compensation, whether it be a salary increase or bonus structure, whatever the case may be. In this last one, it was a bonus request. This time around, we asked for 10% total to be awarded to Sherry, and then they came back and gave the other options that Commissioner Jantz had spoke of. Historically, the requests that had gone through were submitted, and there were some that were accepted and some that were denied. The last one that was actually accepted was back in, it was requested in 2015 and awarded in 2016. Okay, and that was an 8% salary increase. After that, the requests were submitted in both 17 and 18 with the same amounts requested. And Curtis, if you correct me if I'm wrong, but they were 8% requests for each year. Okay, and those subsequent requests were denied by ADOA. So
Commissioner Keister was 8%?
Correct.
Okay.
So those 8% requests that were submitted in 17 and 18 were both denied. And I believe in 19, it took the 18 request took so long that we basically resubmitted it the following year in 19. So come 19. Curtis? I'm muted. You're muted. Still muted.
You hear me now?
There you go.
You hear me now? Okay. That request in 2019, as you mentioned, Carlos, the amount was increased to 12 to 15% that the board discussed, and that letter came from the chair at that time, Sue Kay, because it went so many years without an increase from 2016 to 2019. ADOA did not respond to that request until almost 15 months later. That's why you see the lag time in between. And then basically it was a change in the ADOA's compensation manager who left the state and went to another job. So it's like reinventing the wheel again with a new person. And again, that's when they implemented the freeze on as we went into COVID toward 2020. So there was a lot of lag time between 2016 and now 2021, and that's why Sherry has not had a raise in that process.
So thank you, Curtis. So to circle back to what I mentioned at the very beginning, this year we chose to award a bonus as a one-time payment, and it was a 10% amount. So Commissioner Jantz, if you want to cover the 4 options again, we could discuss it from there.
This is Commissioner Keast. Yeah, if you could go over those again, that would be great. Thank you, Curtis. Thank you, Carlos. I appreciate you presenting that information. If you've not had the opportunity to review the board materials, they are available online for you to review. You can see the full history there. But I want to remind you that we do have 4 options that the board can choose from. The first option is to continue with the current approved bonus, a one-time 10% bonus. The board can change our request to a baseline increase with no bonus. Option 3 is requesting a pay increase with a smaller bonus, that one-time bonus attached. Option 4 would be for a baseline increase with the current 10% bonus that was already approved by the board, that one-time bonus. I think it's important that the board talk about what the best way to proceed. This really came to us as a surprise. We were not expecting to receive this response based on our previous requests. I wanted to make sure that I presented the full information to the board. Keep in mind that Sherry has been running this agency for a long time, and her performance has been exceptional for many years. So the question becomes, does the board want to retain Sherry for the coming years? If we do, how do we proceed with that plan? Would it be a base pay increase? Would it be a smaller bonus? Something for the board to talk about. I already asked Curtis and Carlos about the budget situation and whether the one-time bonus or the salary increase would have a big impact on the budget. And I was told that there would be no significant impact on the budget. It'll be easy for the agency to absorb the cost. I also asked a clarifying question about ACDHH staff and their status. And I was told that they would go through a different process because they're employees, not an executive. They're in a different classification. That way, and Sherry can get an annual increase and a performance increase that's separate from the other increases. And we know that based on the board history and with Sherry's performance, her excellent performance, and the board has been very pleased with Sherry's work and her performance, but ADOA has not been in support of that compensation increase. So now we need to revisit the discussion. I would like to open the floor and call commissioners who would like to join in on the discussion. This is considered an action item on the agenda. And so we do need to go back to ADOA to inform them what the board has decided. Commissioner Cohen. This is Commissioner Cohen signing. I have a question for clarification. I know that the board did meet and proposed that 10% increase, and now ADOA is coming back to us with additional options. Does that mean that they are in support of giving Sherry all of these options that have been presented to us? Or are they just telling us that there are other options before it's submitted? I wanted to get clarification on that. That's a valid question. I'll let Carlos respond and then I can add.
Commissioner Cohen, they did not give any indication if it was an approval or an acceptance of the amount. They just wanted to let us know that those options were available now. But it did not, they did not sway one way or another. They were simply presented the information and allow you folks to make the decision.
This is PV. Thank you so much, Carlos. And to add on to that, I'll say in my experience as chair and as a board member, and also as a former member of the personnel committee, I understand that this never came back to the board from ADOA that first time. And so my interpretation of the situation was, if they weren't willing to consider the first option, I don't think they would give us the other three options. And as Carlos mentioned, we don't know exactly what they're willing to do, and we don't know what they're willing to approve. I do think it's important enough for the board to consider that we have all the documentation we need in order to show that we have tried over the years to get this approved, and the board has approved the compensation increase. And so that's why I didn't feel comfortable moving forward with just the bonus structure. And that's why I wanted to meet as the full board, because we do have a good purpose for our discussion. We do have good discussion points, but we don't know the exact numbers that they have in mind. So keep in mind that if we change what we are proposing to ADOA, then we really have to send it back to them and see what they say. Curtis?
Andrew, I would just like to add that ADOA in the past and the history of dealing with them, as long as you're following within the parameters, for example, if you're staying within her pay range, and that's the information that they provided to Carlos and PV, what there's been, the pay range has been expanded. That's one of the reasons why the opportunities have presented itself. So as long as the request is within the ADOA's policies and guidelines, pay range, and other programs, then I think that will be, anything will be acceptable for them to consider.
I see Jennifer, then Commissioner Keast, and then Commissioner Webster. This is Commissioner Scarborough. I think Webster had her hand long up before mine, so we can go the other way around. That's fine. We'll start with Webster, then Commissioner Keast, and then Commissioner Scarborough. All right, so Commissioner Webster, Commissioner Keast, and then Commissioner Scarborough.
Okay, this is Commissioner Webster, and I would like to reiterate what Commissioner Jantz has said, in that I have the firm belief that we have seen the most exemplary performance over the past years. My concern is that the history, just while I have been a commissioner, has been the no response or something that has delayed any kind of action taken on her raises. So my hope is that we can determine what is the highest and best way to compensate Executive Director Collins and walk that fine line. I don't want to take away something that's guaranteed for something that we may not get an answer for another 15 months. And I don't know which one's the best, but I hope we can determine that with the board today.
Commissioner Keast. This is Commissioner Keast. I agree with you, Commissioner Webster. There's really no guarantee. And so I'm not sure which option to really move forward with, but I agree completely that Sherry's performance has been exemplary. She's done amazing work for the state of Arizona. No questions there. I definitely agree. My question is then, options 2 and 3 are kind of seeming vague to me, because there's the base increase and there's the base increase with a small bonus. Can I get some clarification on that? This is PV. Sure, I'd be happy to go over the 4 options again. We could continue with what the board has already approved, which is the one-time bonus. That's option 1. And this is Commissioner Keys. So that's just a one-time thing. Yes, exactly. It would be a one-time thing. And it was already approved by the board at the last board meeting. This is Commissioner Keys. Okay, I had forgotten about that. Okay. The second option is a base increase with no bonus. Option 3 would be a base pay increase with a smaller bonus, a one-time bonus. And then option 4 would be a base pay increase with the current bonus of 10% that was already approved by the board, the one-time 10% increase or bonus, excuse me. And so that's what ADOA came back to us with. I see Commissioner Scarborough and then back to Commissioner Webster. This is Commissioner Scarborough. I'll say that the state typically prefers a cost of living increase for an increase in base pay, essentially. I think that that would be easily supported. A higher increase, like a 10% or an 8% increase, may give the state some pause. And so that may be why ADOA was hesitant to approve the requests in the past, because they were pretty high compared to state standards. But it has been quite a long time. So, and we have a myriad of reasons to support the increase, right? No questions there. We have no questions about Sherry's performance or whether or not she's doing a good job. I definitely agree there. We have our reasons. I feel that we can ask for the base pay increase. And I feel like it'll probably be approved. A 10% bonus, however, plus a base pay increase may be a challenge. We may be able to make it work, though, with a smaller bonus. And I feel like we should fight for it, to be honest with you. I think that it's a worthy fight. And we originally, the committee did present the 5% bonus. And I was reviewing my notes for this meeting. We originally said 5%. And then we amended it and increased it to 10%. So it's possible that we could say the increase in base pay plus a bonus of 5%, a one-time bonus. That may be a good place to start our discussion. Okay, I see, this is PV. I see a couple of hands. What I'm going to do is go to Commissioner Webster, Commissioner Keast, and then Commissioner Cohen.
This is Commissioner Webster. I'm going to withdraw
We're going
my
to,
thoughts for a moment to hear more discussion because I'm a little confused on which would be best.
okay, perfect. And that's the very reason that we're having the conversation. So we have those four options, and I have the four individuals who were making comments. And so I want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to have their say. We have Commissioner Williams, Commissioner Cohen, and then Commissioner Keast, followed by Commissioner O'Rourke.
This is Commissioner Williams. I have to be honest with you. I'm trying to untangle these four a little bit as we go along. And I agree with what's been said. I thought about Commissioner Webster's concern that if you ask for too much, it'd take forever to get it back. And then I thought, she hasn't had anything in 5 years. It's not unreasonable to give her some kind of a boost that compensates for that a little bit in the mind of the people reviewing the request. So I was thinking, what is the best, what's the most we could get for her? Increasing the base pay is always good because you don't have to go back and fight for it again. So if we can give her a good base pay increase and then at least a 5% bonus, that might get us through the problem of waiting forever to hear from them. It also opens the door to that where she has a higher base pay and we go back next year and ask for another bonus. I thought that might give us the most flexibility and give her the best outcome.
Thank you. Now I want to make sure that we go in order. So we're going to go to Commissioner Cohen, Commissioner Keast, and then Commissioner O'Rourke, and then Carlos. This is Commissioner Cohen. I have a question specifically for you, Curtis. How does this process work with ADOA? If we were to submit something to them, are there specific criteria that they follow? Is there a negotiation process? If we say 10%, can we negotiate? Can they pick something else, or do they have to move forward with the original request? Just trying to get a better understanding of how ADOA functions.
Andrew, I will speak on the past and let Carlos speak of the current process. Because he is the business manager now, and he's been working with ADOA under the current circumstances. Because personnel I work with in ADOA in the past are along with the state, so they do have a different process. And in the past, that process was we would submit something to them. Usually it was by phone. They very rarely would respond to any request in writing. They will always call and discuss it. If it was either a yes or no, very rarely was it a negotiating. A lot of times it had to go to the governor's office, saying that the governor's office needs to approve it. And that delayed the process as well. I do want to add, Bill, one of the reasons we, in the past, when we did get the one in 2016, what we did was submit a request for the 8%, but we also tapped onto that was a retro. So they don't sit on it for 15 months. So they end up having to give her retro pay back to the date that was assessed for her. And in this case, her review period is on the same as the fiscal year, July 1st to June 30th of the following year. So technically, what you're discussing now should be based on what she should have gotten on July 1st, 2021. So just something to think about when you're looking at the bonus possibilities and the base pay possibilities. So the way Jennifer Hensley Scarborough mentioned about the possibilities of a bonus and a pay being a challenge, the way around that is the retro pay. The retro is basically the bonus, and you just got to give her a high percentage on the base pay. That's just my suggestion. Carlos, you want to take it from there?
Thank you, Curtis. I appreciate it. So to expand upon that just a little bit, currently, this the gentleman from ADOA that reached out with our current submission was open to communication and met with PV and I to see what the options that were available. Okay, so I believe that they're open to communication, but ultimately it's a yes/no decision that winds up getting made. To expand upon that for just a moment, when I was actually in ADOA, a scenario that played out was a promotion or a salary increase was offered with retro. And ADOA approved the salary increase and promotion, but denied the retro. So that can happen as well. All right. So, and it took them a couple months to come back with that decision, and maybe that's why they wound up denying it. But it was and to kind of give you some context with it, it was like they wanted it to start January 1. We received the approval in March, but they were unwilling to back pay back to January. So in this case where we're at right now with this year's submission, we submitted it with the effective date of August 19th. So now we're 2 months in. That could be potential where they deny any retro submission or retro request, I should say.
This is Andrew, Commissioner Cohen. If I'm understanding correctly, it sounds like in the past, it was always a yes/no situation, but potentially now we may have the option to negotiate. And if that's the case, then I think we really should come up with an idea where we're asking for the most that we can possibly ask for in the hopes that that may be a negotiation starting point. This is Commissioner Jantz. Commissioner Keast. This is Commissioner Keast. I'm thinking about the options of having a bonus or a base pay increase. Now, I'm not sure if it's the same process as the state nonprofits go through. There may be a tax implication as well, where a bonus could be more heavily taxed, whereas a pay increase wouldn't be. And there may be some situations where you kind of break even and you really go back to the old pay. So bonuses don't always have the benefits that we think they do, whereas a base pay increase generally is more protected. So just want to make sure that we're considering that as well. Commissioner O'Rourke?
Yes, this is Commissioner O'Rourke, and I just wanted to clarify that if a base increase in the salary is presented this year, will that then continue to be the base that the annual salary will be looked at? Because I believe I read in the materials that Sherry had reached the top of her ladder, say in her area, and so giving an increase to the base, would that kind of ensure that at least we'd be working with a larger base to give some bonus to? I'm trying to figure out, like Fred said, what would be the best way to ensure giving a good increase this year, but also ensuring that in the future that it would be just as equitable to give a bonus increase on a higher base if that would continue along.
Carlos?
So a salary increase would remain in place throughout. So if we chose to give, well, let me circle back real quick. So initially, when we submitted the request, we were under the impression that Sherry had reached the max of her pay grade. And that's when ADOA came back and said we had not reached the max yet, and gave us the variable that we have within there, which comes out to approximately 12-13%, give or take a few half a percentage points there. So we'll call it 12% is about max of where we can go up to before we hit the top of the pay range. But you are correct in that if we add to the salary now, that will maintain throughout the rest of Sherry's tenure, and then any bonus goes from there will be calculated based upon that new salary.
This is PV. Great, thank you, Carlos. One thing that I wanted to mention for the board's consideration: historically, ADOA has approved the 8% increases to the base pay. In 2013 and in 2016, it was approved. If we were to find an average, I think that it would still be less than the average cost of living increase that we've seen. If the board does want to play it safe, we could consider saying, you approved things in 2013 and in 2016, why don't we just go ahead and in 2021 do the same 8% increase? Just to throw out a number as an example, if you feel like we should be more bold, we could submit it at 10%. We could submit it with a lower percentage, but with a bonus attached to it. My feeling is, if we want to retain Sherry as executive director for the next couple of years, a base pay increase would assist with the retention. And I think that it's important that we make a good business decision in order to keep the agency running and to keep a great person in the executive director position. With that said, I would like to address the conversation that we had with ADOA. To me, it was interesting because with Curtis's experience, it's different than what I've been experiencing. Seems like ADOA is much more open. They're more responsive to emails. And I'm sure that you've already heard me as a member asking a whole host of questions, just trying to get the answers and to make sure that we have every question answered. And I've sent them a host of emails, and I've been really impressed with their responsiveness. They've been really engaged, and they've been quick to respond, which gives me the sense that things are possible. And that's why I thought it would be best to have a full board conversation rather than me making this decision on my own, because this is a potential opportunity and we need to consider what to do. All right, I see Commissioner Sienko. and then Commissioner Williams. This is Commissioner Sienko. I've been on the board since 2017. And I remember, basically every year we've made the motion to approve some type of compensation increase for Sherry. And Sherry's done a lot of work, and I've been living in Arizona since 2006, and I've seen all of the work that you've been doing. And, you know, it's kind of the place where I grew up. So listening to everyone and hearing everyone's perspectives, what everyone has shared has really been valid concerns. And I'm going to take what we're hearing from ADOA as a positive, because as a state employee myself, I was pretty impressed with their responsiveness. So this is what I'm hearing about Sherry. So Sherry, really, what do you want? I'm willing to support you in whatever you want. We care for you and we respect you so much. This is Commissioner Jantz. Sherry, would you entertain the question?
Well, first of all, Katie, thank you for the kind words, and everybody else recognize my years of service and the hard work and not receive anything the last 5 years. And as PD mentioned, internally staff get something every year, always get something. And I'm the only one who have not received anything, but that's how it works being the executive director. So I have no problem with that. I think it's important that I support our wonderful staff as well. With what has been happening, and exactly the leadership has changed recently from the previous for better, not just for AHR, but other areas within ADOA. ADOA handles many different areas, procurement, HR, and they've been very receptive with us on other issues. So I'm really impressed with the leadership, the current leadership. So just wanted to clarify that. What I would like is not less than 10% base salary. I'm really 10 to 12 is what I would like, but less than 10%. I don't think that what I have done and what the board had submitted, I think more than 10%, but less. My wish would be more than 10%, to be honest.
Thank you, Sherry. Commissioner Williams?
This is Commissioner Williams. I'm not familiar with the retirement process for the state of Arizona, but if we increased Sherry's base pay as much as we can, would that not carry over into increasing her retirement and in the long run give her more money in retirement for that?
Carlos?
So yes, it would impact retirement. The retirement is, or where it basically takes the average of the last 3 years that you worked is where your rate will wind up coming out of. It's based on that amount. The last 3 years before retirement is where they'll start the calculation process for retirement.
Thank you, Carlos. And I would like to add one point of consideration. the retirement does average the last 3 years worked. And so if the base is increased, that means that may dangle that carrot in front of Sherry, that incentive to keep her here for 3 more years to continue her wonderful work. This is Sherry, I'm still young. This is Commissioner Scarborough, just a baby. This is Commissioner Jantz. This is an action item, and out of respect to your time, I would like to see if we should continue with the previous decision that was made at the last board meeting, or if a new decision should be made, and I can work with Carlos to process the paperwork based on what the board decides. Commissioner Keast? Well, based on what Sherry just said, the increase of over 10% would be great. We know that there is a risk of asking for more. And so we want to make sure that if we ask for more, we still have that landing point of 10%. And then if we have that bonus increase, well, I'm not great at math, so give me a moment here. Let me figure it out. Okay, so if we do the 10% and in 10% bonus and the increase, the base pay, well, wait a minute. What if it was a 12% for both in order to keep Sherry? I think ADOA most likely would negotiate from 12 down to 9, maybe 8%. But if we try for both in the bigger picture, I think that that would get us what we're looking for, if you understand what I'm saying. Now, my understanding, and Carlos, correct me if I'm wrong, the board will decide specifically what we would like to submit, and then ADOA can come back at us with a yes or a no. And then we may have the option, or excuse me, we did have the options that were presented to us when we went back to ADOA. Back in Curtis's time, we know that it was more of a yes or a no answer. And we've received many no's over the years. But now we're in a unique situation where we were given options. So how should we proceed? Commissioner Cohen? This is Andrew. I think we should keep it simple. We've heard from Sherry, and we know her wants. This is Commissioner Cohen making a motion that we increase the base pay by 10%. This is Commissioner Jantz. We have a motion on the table. Any further discussion? We need a second first. So take a moment. Okay, Commissioner Scarborough seconds that. All right, thank you. I appreciate that. So we have a motion and a second. Now, any discussion? I see Commissioner Webster. And then
I'm going for clarification. We're saying the motion is for the 10% salary increase, period, or does that include the also approved recommended 10% bonus with it? And what about retroactive? How does that work? I'm greedy.
This is Commissioner Jantz. My understanding from the motion that was made by Commissioner Cohen is that it's a base pay increase of 10% only.
Okay, thank you.
Whether or not it be done retroactively, that would be more on a business decision made by ADOA.
Okay, yeah.
Carlos can tell them that we want it to be retroactive back to a certain date, but we don't know if they'll do that. Sherry?
for clarification, you need to specify, if you want a retroactive, you need to say that in part of your motion when those would affect. It needs to reflect in the board minute when you submit the request.
Exactly. Okay. I see Commissioner Keast has a question. This may have already been answered, but is there an average on the increase in base pay for executive directors? This is Commissioner Jantz. I asked ADOA and they said that there was no average. It's dependent on the size of the agency and the history of what's been approved by that executive director. Some executive directors continue to get increases, whereas the requests from ACDHH have been denied. So really all over the board. So I want to remind everyone that we have a motion on the floor. It has been seconded, and this motion is for a 10% base pay increase. We can have further discussion, we can accept an amendment, or we can move forward with a vote. My question for you would be, if you want to continue with the 10% base pay increase, how would you want that set? Carlos?
Just a reminder of what Sherry said with an effective date. So that's also something to take into consideration with that.
Just remember, my evaluation period is July the 1st. That's when my evaluation period is July the 1st to June 30th. But the board discussed in August. So really my official performance every year is July the 1st to June 30th of that year, just so they know.
This is PB. And I see Commissioner Scarborough, and then I have a comment. No comment, I was just making a face. Okay, I thought you had your hand raised. Oh, do you have something? This is Commissioner Scarborough. I move that we amend the motion on the table to increase the base salary by 10% starting August, whatever that date was.
19.
August 19th. This is Commissioner Keast, August 19th.
The 19th of August 19th, 2021. This is Commissioner Jantz. Thank you, Commissioner Scarborough. Commissioner Cohen, do you accept the amendment to your motion?
I do.
All right, amendment accepted. We have a motion on the floor to increase Sherry's base pay by 10% starting August 19th, 2021. Any further discussion?
I do have a question.
Commissioner Keast?
This will be continually forever too, right? That's my understanding.
Yes, this will be the new minimum pay for Sherry, new minimum salary. Mhm.
Okay, thank you. I just want to get clarification as I'm going. Thank you.
And this is Commissioner Scarborough. Are we just discussing the amendment? This is PV. The amendment has already been discussed. So we have the 10% effective August 19th, 2021. If there is no further discussion, I would like to call a vote with a roll call. And while we're waiting for the roll call, Curtis?
I just wanted to point out something we've done in the past. The board always met in August, even that's when they review Sherry's final review period. Remember, you can't review it before till the end of that review period. That being August meeting being the first meeting after her review period is up, which is June the 30th, is why the board meets. So if the board approves something on that board meeting, then it was requested will be to Rachel it back to her at the end of her review period, which will be the beginning of July 1st. So it wasn't the board approval date that increases that pay. The effective date was based on her ending review period, which would be June 30th. Just want to point that out. So that's the argument you can make with ADOA, and it just happened that got extended because of the delay. But if the board had approved it in August, it would have been effective June 30th. I mean, July 1st.
This is Commissioner Jantz. Thank you so much, Curtis. And I agree. My goal was to keep things simple and to let ADOA handle all those rules. And hopefully we could get what we want. If they do approve the base pay for before the date that we thought of, if it goes retro before then, that's even better. So. All right, now we're going to move forward with the roll call out of respect for your time.
Commissioner Keast,
Yes. Aye.
Commissioner Scarborough,
Aye.
Commissioner Sienko,
Aye.
Commissioner Webster,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Rourke,
Aye.
Commissioner Jantz,
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
and Commissioner Brimhall.
Aye.
Thank you so much for the roll call. Motion carries. Congratulations, Sherry. Well deserved. Now, what I'm going to do from here is I will work with Carlos and Curtis to draft a new letter and get that sent over to ADOA. Hopefully, we'll have a response before the next board meeting, and we'll make sure that this is on the next board meeting's agenda. So we can talk things over if this needs to be discussed again. Thank you so much for your willingness to be here tonight for this special board meeting. We felt like this was an important discussion, and I appreciate your time and adjusting your schedules last minute. Out of respect for your time, we're going to adjourn the meeting. We're only at about an hour, so I will call the meeting to adjourn at 5:38. Any motions? Mrs. Sherry, we need a motion to adjourn.
Vote to adjourn. Oh,
I know, that's why I'm leading with any motions from the board. Commissioner Webster?
I move we adjourn the meeting effective immediately.
Sienko, I second that. This is
At 5:39.
All right, 5:39, 1 minute late. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Everyone have a
everyone.
wonderful evening.
Thank you, everyone.
thank you.
See you next month.
Hi, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.